Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you provide us with a policy?
Well, it's just, we put it on the agenda for you to discuss. We'll get the page you're looking for, so
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
discuss it. It's all right with you, Andrew? I'm gonna skip to the grant update while you review that,
Yeah, that'd be
and that'll
great.
give you some time, and we can keep down the list till you find what you're looking for, and then we'll come back to it.
Sure, thank you.
All right. We'll go on to 4F, grant update. Cheryl.
Okay, this is just new grants that we've received over the course since July. One is a Community Solutions, and it's from the Office of Policy and Management, and it's Juvenile Justice High School Right Response, and it's part of the program that we do with LIST, which is multiple programs and organizations in Torrington that, like the McCall Foundation, Charlotte Hungerford Hospital, and, what's the best way with disciplining and dealing with students. And so we just received $45,000, or we requested 45 and have 30. We also work with Torrington Police Department with that. And so that we're all working and dealing with our teenagers at the same way. You see for Ford's roof, the reimbursement, because of our ratings from the Connecticut State Department of Education. We contributed to the Race to the Top, and so we put in writing support for $10 million. We hope we'll at least get $7,500 for our effort and piece, which is, $7,500, but that's wait to see if the state gets the $10 million. And then with Title I, Title II, and Title III, those are the amounts that we've received and have been awarded for this year. We also received an immigrant grant, which we haven't received yet. We've been told we've received it, and that would be another $17,000.
For the ones where we had an amount requested and we received a lesser amount, is the program then catered for the reduced amount, or?
We judge, yeah, we cut corners, shave off a little here.
Okay,
shave
so it
off a
doesn't
little-
go into the general?
No, it does not.
Yeah, what is Even Start again, Superintendent?
Even Start is the program for either at Forbes, it's a program for parents who are immigrants and learn English as a second language. And they also participate in home visits and parent and child time. And it's also for students at the high school, young parents at the high school. It keeps them in high school because we're able to provide quality child care while they finish their diploma. And they've now adjusted it that so if they want to continue on, like say at a local community college, they'll still be entitled to child care, but they must participate in the home visits, the parenting, and what they call PAC time, parent and child together.
Why, is this specific to language issues?
No, the one at Forbes that's the focus for the one at Forbes. It's for immigrant families. The one for here is students attending Torrington High School.
Right, but was it written specifically for immigrant families?
And for teenagers, yes.
So it has to be used for that?
Yes. Well, I don't think we turn anybody away, who could benefit. Like if they can finish a GED program.
No, but I was thinking more like, other schools, Southwest, for instance. where
Oh,
you
it's
have
for the
young-
town, it's not just, it's for all families. We have families who are in Vogel District or Southwest or can go to the one at Forbes.
Yeah, it's just held at Forest. It's housed in Forest, but it covers
Okay,
Forest.
I'm sorry, but the one here is strictly for just
You understood, okay.
young parents.
Yeah.
On the Forbes roof grant, we haven't heard anything back on the solar portion yet?
No. They said at the new session in January.
Cheryl, which one of these, which ones are the result of the grant writer that we contract out? Are all of them, some of them?
Right now, it's her responsibility to be part of all of these.
Was she part two and part two?
No, that's, I'm sorry, but everything else, yes. She works with, if there's a primary educator in the district who's doing it, but, or she'll do the rough. You know, it's a collaborative effort.
Money well spent.
Yes.
She needs to write more school readiness quality enhancement grants, because they gave us more than we asked for.
Yeah.
We need more of those.
And, well, we're trying.
Okay. You ready? Okay, we're gonna go back to the memorialization item.
And I guess I interpret the attorney policy where it says, the attorney shall give his or her written opinion on all legal questions referred to him or her by the Torrington Board of Education or the superintendent. I just felt that that was, when questions were referred over, that whatever reason this policy was enacted in 2008 and adopted in 10, I thought that that interpreted if either the superintendent or the board through the chairman had questions for the attorney, that the attorney would write an opinion advising the board or the superintendent or both on what he was saying, as opposed to just orally telling it to the chairman, who then would regurgitate it if it came to our attention. And I'm not saying that you don't do a very nice job.
No,
I
just
just-
a formal request. I have them do a written opinion, which we've had 3 of them this year, that, have come down through. When someone from the board has said, I would like a legal opinion on whatever, and then I have them put those down.
But I'm not positive it says, I mean, in reading this now, I think that this policy probably needs to have some updating. But that being said, I'm not positive just this section references the distinction between what you would say a formal request for an opinion versus an informal request. It just really seems to be talking about legal questions. I mean, what type of question are you asking the attorney? Unless it's something that you're seeking an actual legal opinion on. I mean, I don't really see the difference between.
Well, sometimes it's more of a guidance question versus it could just be a procedural question. It could be, I called them and asked them what it would cost to memorialize all of our conversations.
Right.
I didn't ask them to do a written opinion on that at $370 an hour, to spend a couple of hours to write that down. I thought them just telling me over the phone that these are the ranges of increases that they would expect to see would suffice for the discussion. So there's those 2 different distinctions. I didn't want to spend the money on that when we're trying to save it.
And it probably has something to do with whether or not you have a board attorney who actually serves as a full-time board attorney, who actually is in the district as a full-time employee, where board members or any staff can go in and ask questions in that informal way. But the fact that the attorney isn't here to informally talk to board members or staff usually leads to a situation where those types of opinions, legal opinions, are best memorialized so that not only you understand what they're saying, but it's just the educational process for the entire board to know how the legal analysis is done on that issue. And I'm not talking that we want to, I guess the way to look at it is, if you feel it's important enough to pick up the phone and start him on the clock, then it's important enough for him to put it in writing and have to be responsible for what he says in writing.
Well, honestly, I have a tendency to save all of my questions until we have an expulsion hearing or some other reason that the legal counsel is in district, and then I slip questions into him to get an answer. So I'm not paying twice. While we're in deliberation or we're waiting for something to happen, I ask as many questions as I can, get as many answers as I can, so that we're already paying them to be in district. I'm not doing a second phone call. And in that situation, no, I don't ask them to spend the time to write it down and correct cross bullets.
And two, I think what's impacted has traditionally, Torrington has had one lawyer, one attorney representing them. And now with the difficulties of, sometimes we may be talking school law, and other times it might be employee law or injury law, or, it could be different than just a book that we could carry around and sleep with. I think that's the difference too, because it's like now when you go to a doctor, you have your primary care physician, but then they'll send you to 3 other doctors to figure out what's wrong with you. It's the same thing with law now. There's not a generalist in law, so, you can't have just that one attorney to know and to be the expert, the in-depth expert. Things that happen because you've got your business side and you have your education side, and they're very different. I'm trying to think, what did we need last year or a couple of years ago with the business component?
The contract for the boilers, the whole
Yes.
energy
Yeah.
efficiency study. Because no one was an expert on that, so we needed to make sure the company that we were contracting with was doing right by us, so we had to see Shipman and Goodwin to make sure and get their experts in that area of law to
So it's
read
a
our
whole different
contract.
department than what we normally
I don't think that
engage with.
changes. Andrew's question basically, we should probably address that policy to see how the board feels about, do we want every communication memorialized, or do we want to redefine that policy as to, specifically requested opinions are memorialized and the rest of them can be verbal or.
Yeah, maybe
Just to clarify.
as you articulate what issues you talk to them about, if maybe you would present to the board, there were 5 issues that I talked informally with the attorney about. And then if you present those 5 issues and you present it to the board, then maybe the board would say, yeah, I would like to see number 2 if the attorney could. So we can kind of be more.
No, that's fair.
Because, if nobody's really interested in any of you, there's no point in putting them in. But if there's something you're talking to them about that's of interest to a board member, then it would be better to have him.
But that would still require
Yeah,
us to
this-
revise that
Right. There's-
policy as
This whole
well.
policy needs to be revised.
I'm up for it.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, I like support where Mr. Nardi is going with this, and I think that's a good process. If the board, if an individual board member feels like they want something memorialized and put in writing, that would make the recommendation, and hopefully the rest of the board will agree and support that board member. And I also agree with the general idea that, just because of the spiraling costs, we keep in mind that there is the option to go with a single attorney to handle all these, with the clear understanding that there's always going to be, unique cases where you would do what you do in any other business where you've got a primary third-party vendor, is they would outsource that to a specialist, I think the basic, basic educational law is, there's plenty of it, but I think a single lawyer, you don't have just one specialty. Typically, right, you would have several different areas of expertise. It's certainly conceivable, right? So, and since they're related, special education law, general education law, labor law. Those are the basic. 90% of our work is in that domain, those domains, and therefore, it may behoove us to get an attorney that is literally on call, is on staff, and then when things arise that are outside of that 90%, then you understand that you have to go to a specialist for that.
We basically use 2. And Shipman, we have.
We mean within shipment.
Yeah,
Right.
there's one that handles all of it, and then there's the one that handles the special ed. And Rich Mills kind of oversees the 2 of them.
I would caution the board to contact other districts in Connecticut. There isn't one that has their own attorney. There's some that have tried it and let go of it because of their lawyer. So
Yeah.
I would contact other boards in Connecticut.
But maybe given the budgetary constraints that are, that are occurring now, maybe there
I mean,
are other boards are
the majority
considering
of
it.
attorneys aren't going to want to work for a school district.
Yeah.
So what kind of attorney are you getting if they're coming to work for a school district for $90,000 or $100,000 a year?
Well, maybe it's 140,000, we're still saving some money, and
But we're not,
But
because
that
then
one's
we're
gonna be
still
more than what
outsourcing
was in
for all
last
our
year.
contractual work, our labor work. I mean, you're not getting a labor
but you have
slash
somebody on staff.
educational
But you have
specialist.
somebody on, that's the big difference, is that kind of money, you have somebody on staff, superintendent can walk over there and say da-da-da-da, you know? Business can go over there and say, I need you for half an hour to talk about this. It's not, you know what I'm saying? You may get a lot more efficiency and maybe a lot more legal expertise.
Or a lot more trouble if we have the
Well,
wrong person
that's the
in the
discussion,
wrong
right.
position. I mean, I strongly support where we are right now. I think they've served us well. I think they have the expertise that we need. And we have been through a tremendous amount of situations in the last year. I fear to think what it would have cost us if we had an in-house attorney that couldn't reach out to other attorneys that have handled some of these situations that we've been under. So I would strongly caution the board to look at an employee over a firm that specializes in this area.
You also have the conflict, if this person is here and hearing all sides, who's the client? I mean, is the board the client, is administration the client? I think you'd run up to a lot where you have to say, I'm no one's client, or I'm just the board's client, and administration has to go get the attorney anyway. I just picture that happening a lot, unless you had it just devoted to labor and always represented just administration. I think you end up with a conflict of interest where you just have to back away.
We did have that issue prior to going to Shipman where administration and the board used the same attorney at expulsion hearings, and there was an issue at a hearing. That's what spurred the needing the two separate attorneys, is the administration's asking for a particular outcome to a expulsion hearing, but the board has a different view, but you have one person trying to coach both. And it ran into a problem. That's when they started with the two separate.
I just want to say that I disagree with you to a degree in the sense that you'll always ask the board's attorney who you represent, and the board's attorney will always say, I represent the Board of Education. There is never a conflict that he is ever conflicted between I represent the superintendent versus the Board of Education.
The goal is to have the attorney on staff to answer questions from anyone else besides them. I mean, I don't think the board would be utilizing the attorney on staff as much as the superintendent would be utilizing it. So, I mean, if you want to pay for administration to have a full-time attorney, that's one thing, but I don't think the board's, a full-time attorney for the board would serve the board well, or the district. I think would be.
Well, I think we should do, if you want to propose that, we can bring that to the budget. At budget time, we can look at the costs of having it in-house versus an outside.
That's one concept, but I would think maybe we can get some prices on what we only have 13, well, 12, sometimes 11, sometimes 12 full board meetings a year, regular meetings. Maybe you can get a price to see what it would cost to have our board attorney show up for, say, the first hour of a meeting. So he would be first on the agenda so as to discuss what legal issues superintendent or the board chairman discussed with him during that month. And it would also give the board an opportunity of issues or questions that they had that arose in the month to ask him at that portion of the agenda. I would assume, we put them right on the first part of the agenda so as to get them in and out.
It's actually in your packet.
$370
$370 an hour.
Okay, so let's say,
Plus
so.
plus travel.
Plus travel time, yes.
Well,
That's
everything is a
total.
little negotiable, so if we're, yeah. Is $5,000 approximately worth it to have a more informed board on not just the issues and concerns that they have, but also to be more educated as to the issues and concerns that they're hearing from both the superintendent and the chairman? I think that's more than worth potentially spending $5,000. I mean, we spent $15,000 for CAVE for however much, and I think that we could probably be better served by just dealing with all those types of things that CAVE may or may not help us with by just having a regular once a month, 15, 20 minutes he stays here and gives us his little educational lesson.
I mean, another solution is sit on expulsion, grievances, any of the negotiations, the attorneys are there. And you can, I mean, we have such large agendas every month, I can't imagine if we started out with an hour of basically free time with an attorney. I would not be in support of all of that. I think there's plenty of opportunities for board members outside of the monthly board meeting to have contact with the
Well,
attorneys.
the problem we have is when you have just one meeting a month, issues come about and you only have one formal opportunity every 30 days to even get that issue to the chairman in a formal manner. And for the chairman then to articulate what my concern was at tonight's meeting to the board's attorney. So I waited 30 days to get this concept to the board and to the chairman. Now I'm going to have to wait another 30 days to officially get that report back from the chairman. And again, it's not, you don't want to pay the money for him to necessarily put it in writing. Issue,
But you could always email me or call me with the question. I could have the answer so that at the board meeting, when you ask the question, we would have the answer for the question. And that would save you a lot of time and consternation.
Yeah. I guess my whole point of always being at these board meetings is I never feel that my question is something that I personally think I'm the only one who is interested in knowing that answer. I always try to at least create questions that I assume or hope the entire board and the administration is just as interested in getting that legal opinion. I think there's a compromise. We don't have to decide it tonight, but I think it's something to look at as we go forward.
Well, let's just do a straw poll if you guys want me to get a price from Shipman and Goodwin to attend, even if it's every other meeting, for them to attend every meeting or every other meeting to give a update of all questions asked of them during that time period. John?
Too many lawyers already. I don't feel the need.
That's a no, or Carl's a no.
We already have our retreat, and maybe if we upped our retreats, I mean, if we did a couple more retreats out of the year, you can, just ask as many questions as possible in that short time period. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. I actually think it's a good idea. But I don't know logistically if that would work at the beginning of every meeting, where, like, I said, it's sort of a free-for-all. But maybe if we upped I think we should up our retreats, to be perfectly honest. We need to do more, things like that. I think that's a good idea. So I would be in favor of upping the retreats, but I would also be in favor of the student arguments if we're not going to do that.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes, sorry.
We should be going to drive down legal costs, not increase legal costs.
Alan?
No, not on that. I do support, like I said, the idea of having the board memorialize specific decisions that they feel they want more detail in.
I can understand Mr. Nardi's point, however, I agree with Chris on this, that costs need to come down. contractually, our costs are gonna go up every year anyway. So why already set a prerequisite to increase the increase?
And Andrew, I put you down for a yes.
Yeah, but just observation, which is, I view this through experience that, yeah, maybe it'll cost, you can project maybe $5,000 a year, but almost every year, we always run into a situation such as we just had with Mr. Cavanero, which I'm pretty certain that cost for that whole experience is going to exceed $5,000. And if you had the ability in the beginning to have that attorney deal with some of the issues that were raised, we probably would have saved several $1,000s right there. But every year we always, I mean, especially if you go back to my first year with our superintendent situation, more contact earlier in the process, if the board had with the attorney, may have prevented literally 100,000 plus. So I understand you don't want that so-called $3,000 to $5,000 worth of expenditure on your books, but every year it may pay for itself, that little prevented expenditure of having the attorney circumvent issues that, for whatever reason, get out of control. That's all I'm concerned
Well,
about.
Andrew, I'm gonna take your advice of, I'll write down all the communications that I had, and if a board member, I'll present it at
Yeah.
a board meeting, and if a board member has something that they wanna further, then we can take it further. I mean, I agree, I think that's a good idea, so, I mean, at least, it's not getting them here every month, but I think that a monthly update is fair enough. All right?
The difficult part with Mr. Campolito and myself, when we call an attorney, it's usually, it has to probably be confidential because it involves either a child or an employee.
And I understand that aspect, and I think there's more, I think that should be more removed. But I would like to say that if you call the attorney asking a question pertaining to the role of a board member or what your relationship is to the board in dealing with an issue, I would like that opinion memorialized by the board's attorney, or somehow given to the chairman, who can then request it to be memorialized. It would be in it would be in the superintendent's best interest, so that we don't have issues that we argued about, where if my concern about what you may or may not be doing, instead of me battling with you at this meeting, it's just, yeah, I talked to the attorney, and this is his opinion on this issue, and I can read it, and if I still have a problem with it, as opposed to like thinking, well, what's really transpiring. So I think it's in
We'll do the monthly update
Yeah.
minus any employee or child confidential.
but I think it should be for the superintendent.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, so we'll do a monthly update, just minus the child
Yeah, I agree.
and employee confidential. Okay, thank
Whether
you.
we're gonna be in the same position is my concern.
Yes.
So come to the policy meeting when we're redoing the policy.
Because if the issue is they want everything memorialized in writing, that's not gonna solve the issue of use right now. So I would just caution as a board how we want to handle this going forward.
Yep.
My personal feeling is we elect a chair to deal with the day-to-day stuff that the whole board doesn't deal with. And if the whole board wants to deal with all the day-to-day stuff, then that's an issue that we need to address.
Thank you. All right. G, 2 positions.
Now, brought this before the board last month, and it was recommended that we go to personnel, which we did, and personnel approved, move forward with it. and these are two positions. One, to support there'll be elementary, 092, they will work 206 days. And they're not only to help with the evaluation of teachers, but also one person will work with pre-K, ELL, and the Voices program with evaluation there. They'll be the liaison with DCF interventions district-wide. They'll make sure that as they'll be the administrator at elementary, support principals at elementary PPTs, and make sure that the IEPs, that the recommendations that are being made follow up to make sure that they're appropriate for the need of the child. And we'll also look at all the RTI, which is interventions, research interventions for students prior to moving forward to the PPT level. The other one, and that's really educational services support and intervention services. And the second position is supervisor of school safety, wellness, and climate. Right now, we need to have district-wide coordinator for school safety. We need to have a district-wide coordinator for school security. And we also need to have someone for wellness, and then we also need someone to work with each individual school in these three capacities. And again, we'll sit with 504 meetings, which are regular ed interventions and behavior plans, and also to help with the supervision component. We'd like to keep the number of teachers' evaluations down for each administrator to around 26. Without these positions, our elementary administrators will be sitting at 32 and above.
Originally, when we did the budget, we were asked by the mayor at the time to cut all of our, what he called discretionary spending, which was money allocated for pending mandates that we had an idea were coming, but they weren't finalized yet. We were instructed to only carry the cost for existing mandates, not proposed mandates. So this money and all our money for that, those aspects were removed from the budget. I would like permission from the board to go to the Board of Finance and propose to them that based on the teacher mandate evaluation that came down, that we need to add 2 administrators that we don't have in our budget. And I would like, they had said at our Board of Finance City Council meeting that they would be open to discussing any unexpected costs with us as long as we had reduced the budget at the time that they were trying to put their mill rate together. So I would like to go ask them for this money to fund these 2 positions and see what they have to say.
Last night I was looking at our proposed, well, it wasn't our proposed, it was our actual booklet on our 2013/14 budget, and in that document it showed a 5-year historical, I think it was 5 years of historical spending, and I looked at the administrator's line item, and the first year it was $2.5 million, approximately. Oh, there you go. You can give the exact numbers.
Are we talking history or
Yeah, it was
projecting
the-
out?
What's that?
I projected out and also
No,
the
that was the
history. It was
history part. And if you looked at it, when I first got on the board, which was like 6 years ago, we were at approximately $2.5 million. And then each year we were able to reduce that number, and I believe we got down to a low of approximately $2.1 million. And this was all in a debate of who was spending more, administrators or teachers' contracts costing us more. And if you looked at the teachers' contract, that went from first year to like $20 million to this present one of 23. So what happened was administrators from that time period, we spent less and less, and I felt good about that. And now, based on what transpired in this budget year, we're back to just where we were 5 years ago, approximately about 2.5 million. And if you want to compare it with the teachers, teachers are still ahead on the salary. But the point that I'm making is I think the board made a concerted effort over those years to try to constantly reduce administrator salaries so as to keep more people in the buildings who deal directly with students. And if you actually were to increase by these two proposals, you're now going to push our line item for this year up to 2.7, right?
Okay.
So, not the direction I want to be in. And I understand that you believe that the state is mandating more and more administrative responsibilities.
There's like one example that this person, one of these people would serve as, is we're supposed to have for a safe school, a bullying specialist in every building. I'm just.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and without having somebody who can be on top of it, or if something occurs, I mean, administrators, your grade level administrators are trying to handle them, or their building administrators. But we did the presentation about what teacher evaluation is occurring this year, and as we move forward, and the need for us to revamp curriculum to match standards, and assessments will demonstrate if students are meeting those standards. That is taking so much time of grade level, building principals, and curriculum district-wide people, that these committees, interventions, there just aren't enough hours in the day to do everything that has been asked of school districts in reform. Just today, my teeth were dropping out when I was at a superintendent's meeting, a superintendent's network meeting, and we were doing observations in another high school close to here. And they not only had grade level administrators, at their secondary level, but they had department chairs, they had assistant department chairs, they had literacy specialists at the secondary level. We have them at the elementary, they had them at both. I mean, and they're all trying to do what we're doing, but they just have a deeper administrative, because in order to do this work, you have to have that certification. If I could assign a teacher to this, we'd assign a teacher to it, just make an extra teacher position, but we can't. All of these things require an administrator to do it.
But these, your basis for these is that the teacher evaluation recommends or states 26 as a maximum per administrator. We don't meet that standard. We have 32 to 35
Or more.
on the elementary level. So it's not, it would be nice. There's a lot of things in Torrington that we would love to have, but we just don't have the money to have. So we're asking for these because we need them to meet the teacher requirements.
The evaluation and supervision, so that your principals and your grade level administrators can do that, and then these people can pick up that other work that our principals normally did.
Well, they still have to evaluate students,
Yeah.
or evaluate teachers, because
Right.
once the principal has 26, that building has 38, that means that there's
40,
12
yeah.
that aren't being evaluated, that somebody else has to do.
Has to pick it
So
up.
you need these people to cover the people that you don't have enough to do.
With all due respect, I just have a hard time understanding why this was not laid out before the board during the budget season, even late in the budget season. The Common Core curriculum, with all of its mandates, may not have had detail, but certainly it's been in the works for 2 years. And I heard at, I think it was the last meeting, the administration say they've had weekly call-ins to the state to discuss specifically Common Core and what it would mean. And it's just hard to imagine that the conversation didn't come up, knowing how evaluation intensive this was, that over the course of 2 years.
The evaluation wasn't over 2 years, the Common Core was.
Right.
And we've been working on making templates of the curriculum because we don't, have so much money to write them.
Right.
During the summer. We've been doing that, okay? And we're doing it during the course of this year. The assessment, they've just been coming out with what the assessment looks like. We have generally, you would develop assessments, formative assessments that are based on a prototype of what CMT's work. Now we're trying to develop prototypes of assessments for what the Smarter Balance is going to look like. That's, and we've known, and we're
This wasn't
working
known
on
in
it.
April or May?
Pardon?
This wasn't known in April?
That was, but we didn't have anybody other than the administrators of the building to do it, okay?
Well, why wasn't that put in the budget then? Why didn't we budget for this?
When did
And
the
go to
teacher
city and say,
evaluation?
here's our budget.
That didn't come down till after July 1.
The teacher
The final-
evaluation was not given until July 1.
Yeah, but you knew you'd have to hire some.
No,
You
now
couldn't
with
even come
the
up with
teacher
best
eval,
guess.
the teacher eval, we did not learn about the depth of the teacher evaluation to this summer when we went to week-long trainings. We did not. It wasn't finished, Paul.
I know, I just have
And
such a hard, I mean, $250,000 a year, that's approximately what this is gonna cost, right, with salaries and benefits. That's 3 tag teachers, you know what I'm saying, every year. Every year, 3 very experienced tag teachers, math teachers, science teachers. It's hard for me to justify this, it's just hard for me to justify this cost. I mean, without all of these other, you didn't, so when you budgeted for this year and you did your, like my hands, and you did your what am I trying to say here, your staffing, your new staffing for the middle school, high school, all of these responsibilities, they must have been assigned to some people, correct?
They were your administrators.
Right. So there were people that could do these. And the argument is that now, because suddenly, since the budget was approved in June, we have this whole new evaluation tool that we had no idea was going to require $250,000 a year to.
It's not a quarter, it's time, the time that needs to go into each evaluation that you do. And that you do,
I get that, Cheryl,
and
but I
it's
mean,
the
there
same
was
for
no
every
way of-
teacher.
There was no way of
We had in
estimating
the
that.
budget $500,000 for anticipated mandates
Yeah.
that Mr. Bingham directly asked us to remove because they were not yet passed mandates. They were not something that was currently a law, that we didn't have a parameter on it. So we were directed at that time to cut that $500,000. And then if the mandates passed, for us to go before the city council and the board of finance and ask them, now that we have the mandate, because they didn't want us to project the cost in case it didn't happen.
Yeah, but
Now-
we knew that was happening. Common Core was
But
happening.
it wasn't passed. No, this is teacher evaluation.
But that wasn't passed till June?
That was
Teacher
passed in
evaluation?
July. We didn't get that till after
Yeah,
the
that
study.
may not have passed in July?
It didn't, we didn't get the parameters of the
I get-
regulation till
I
July.
get we didn't get the parameters, but at what point was it known, yeah, you're gonna have to pony up some money for this? At what point was that known?
We knew that going through the budget
This
season, it was
summer.
asked to be stripped
We-
out when we went before the Board of Finance.
Because there was
No, it
nothing
has
to
to be
finish.
stripped out
Of our
of
budget.
questionable mandates. There's a difference between questionable
No,
and
one-
knowing that you're gonna have
No,
a.
no, no.
But we didn't know the parameters, Paul, was the problem. We had said we were gonna need extra people, but we didn't know how many extra people, so we had estimated a number of people. And what he said to us was, well, if you don't know it for a fact, because we didn't have the design of the evaluation yet, if you don't know exactly what you need, then that's a proposed or an estimated position, and he didn't want us to have those in the budget. So we were asked specifically at Midget Avenue that night to cut all that stuff out. And we did, to get us down to the number that the city needed pass the budget. And then they still cut us for it. We had taken that $500,000 and then, yes, Chris?
And maybe this is what I'm hearing, Paul, because I think I initially had the same problem. How can you go from saying, I have an estimate of this based on some number, to then, and it gets stripped, and I understand that, to then we need precisely this amount. So, and what I'm hearing administration say is, we didn't know that there was gonna be a 26-person cap per administrator. We knew we'd need X number of administrators, but the cap is really the issue that wasn't known until later. If anything, we were still over what we were estimating. I mean, this is, it's not saving us money, but at least it's not $500,000, what it could be. We had to lower the cap. But my question would be, what is it without these two? How much are we over? What would it be with one, and what does it lower it to with two? I mean, are the two necessary, or is the two ideal, or where are we at? Because the Board of Finance is gonna ask what the ratio is going to be, so I think we should know ahead of time. I mean, is this something that we could merge it and just have a director of elementary ed, like we do for secondary ed, and lump all this into one umbrella, or do we actually need two bodies to get below that ratio?
It's to get below that ratio for the supervision component. It's,
Do we know what the numbers are, though, Cheryl?
yeah, I can bring up a full,
Because I think that would, we need to know that. I mean, we need
I think, did we get that?
Yeah, that was
yeah,
last.
that was in the last
month.
month.
We got it.
But the
But we
actual,
were over the 26.
Yeah, with the chart.
Yeah, the whole chart showed the two positions, showed what it was gonna be.
but
Showed
could it be a
everybody's
I understand
position.
showed with two positions, but could it be done with one position? Could it be structured differently? Is there an absolute need for two positions? I know two positions gets us under there. I'm not arguing that. That's obvious based on the numbers, but could one position do it? Does it get us within the ballpark? We're gonna get in trouble. Who's gonna yell at us? I mean,
I have to do a report to the state if I don't evaluate, you know, I have to give them, well, actually, the way it's hooked up, it gets loaded up and sent to the state because it shows what every teacher has received, if they've had all their pre-observations, post-observations, everything like that. Every piece of what professional development they did, the state wants all that information, and I have to do that report, which I have no idea what it's gonna look like in June. I have to have it to them by June 30th. I have to have it before the board by June 15th, and to them June 30th.
I just think we're struggling, and I'll speak for myself, I'm struggling, and I think we need the two positions, let me be perfectly clear, but the rollout of what the timeline was, what happened, why we need the two positions, specifically two, not one, not
It's-
1.4,
right.
1.6, why two people
It's-
at this amount of money, so
It's the
public
other.
and we know
Yeah,
what's going on.
I can tell you, Chris, it's also the other pieces that we are now responsible to do, like, you know, response to intervention, and your weekly meetings, and you have a child at risk, and what are you providing, and you have to monitor what growth that child makes. This all gets fed up to the state now. I mean, it's really Big Brother watching every move you make, every breath you take. The piece that we have to have the whole component about security, and what are we doing to secure our buildings, and the plans that we have in place, and has everybody done all the lockdowns they're supposed to do, and the fire drills, and the training, and we have to rebuild our whole handbook for keeping our schools secure and safe. But then you have to have this district-wide committee. We haven't even put the district-wide committee together yet, and we have to have them on the grade level. So you need somebody who goes to every school-based one as well as to the district-wide one. Again, making sure there's continuity, and you have to have the same thing for safety regarding bullying. Later on I'll share, but we have to rewrite our whole bullying policy because it's not in compliance with the changes that were made last year. And right now, we could be, we're facing a concern from a parent because our policy is out of compliance.
I just think we need to fight the perception that we're adding administrators just to add administrators, and I think everyone knows that you would much rather have teachers there, but it's hard to explain to someone why the district needs a wellness coordinator with an 092. And I'm not saying you need that, the state says that, and we just need to get that information out, that's all I'm saying.
To answer your question, the elementary level is 29 evaluations over with the current administrators. If everybody did 26, we're 29 short.
We need 2 people because of 3
One does
evaluations.
26, and one would need to do the other 3 to pick it up. To answer your question.
And that's the hard part, because you can't have a teacher supervising another teacher, you know, and evaluating.
No, that's
Does the
just
board
teaching.
feel like you want to risk rolling the dice for 3 teachers? What's the state gonna say?
Well, I mean, I also think the TEA and the administrators union might have a problem. I wouldn't want to be the teacher who's being evaluated by an administrator that has 40 on their caseload versus the ones that have 26 in the second year. And all the paperwork involved in the new process. And I think teachers lose out if the administrators are overwhelmed with the amount of paperwork and the number of teachers they're evaluating.
I don't agree with that. I think the less you evaluate teachers, the better off you are, but that's another story.
But they're required to do all this now, so.
But I don't think teachers are gonna be distressed if they don't get the attention that this law wants to give them.
But they're gonna be required to get it. What I'm
Oh, I
saying
know what the law
is,
says,
do
and
they
you're
wanna
right.
get it from an administrator who has too many on his or her plate?
Excuse me, but that's based on, the time for the evaluation meetings, is that fixed? How long the actual meeting, the evaluation process takes, the meetings? That's ultimately the.
Yeah, there was a whole, they gave us that whole diagram. You have to have this many hours of in-class and this many hours of informal observation, informal observation.
Per teacher, is it down to per teacher?
Yeah, it was done by.
Every
per
teacher every year.
It's in this seed packet we got last month.
But in the past, you didn't have to do a full evaluation on every teacher, which includes 3 full observations and 2 informal. Now, every teacher gets 3 formal observations and at least 1 or 2 informal observation, every teacher. And you sit down, it's
They have to have, Paul, to answer your question, they have to have 3 formal observations by the mid-year check-in. Then they have to have another.
How long are the
Oh, I'm sorry, I
formal
take that back. 2 formal observations.
How long are the formal observations?
It says there's a 30-minute pre-con, 45-minute observation, 60-minute write-up, and a 30-minute post-con.
that's the minimum.
These, the observation's 45 minutes, just that, and then there's the other time for the pre-con. They have to have 2 by the mid-year, they have to have 1 after that, they have to have an informal observation, which is 90 minutes in the second half of the year, and then they have to have their end-of-the-year conference with each teacher. It totals
Then they get a rating.
But isn't the
810
reality-
minutes
Okay.
per teacher.
But the reality is, at least half the teachers, it's gonna be a cursory evaluation. I mean, 2/3 of the teachers, they know their job, they're doing them either well or great, and what?
No more that way, Paul. And I'm not being
Not that the teachers
facetious.
aren't doing that.
Yeah,
The way the evaluation is being done, there's a whole checklist and form that you're gonna go through and
we have
you
a
gotta fill it
rubric.
out.
You have to
So you're gonna take a really great teacher, and force them to go through this whole checklist?
We're not gonna say it.
Paul, you go in, no, just here for 2
No,
minutes.
no, okay, I get
Please.
it, Susan. Cheryl, I get it. I would just, I know I pontificate, but this goes to what Chris was saying before, and I did, at least 2 years ago, when Common Core first hit, I was asking board and the administration to try to reach out to other boards, to try to find common cause, to find accountability with the state for what they were trying to implement.
And again, it's just because I lived through No Child Left Behind and the implementation of that. I knew we were gonna be looking at another form of absolutely counterproductive. I mean, some of it's productive for sure, but this is clearly counterproductive, spending all this money to evaluate teachers that, so many that don't need the evaluation, when we need the money for other things much more desperately. And it's definitely punitive against poorer districts, because we all have to, you know, it hurts us. We need that $250,000 a year for tag programs, for LAC, for science, for math, for technology, for, you know, robotics programs. Other school districts, you know, wealthier ones, you know, what's another $250,000? It's punitive to school districts like us, and this frustrates me. See, this is not anger toward anybody in particular. This is me being very frustrated with the fact that we cannot somehow find a way as a board to express this.
Found a way as a board, Paul?
Excuse me, what?
When you brought that up, I reached out to Avon, Simsbury, Granby, thinking maybe they were wealthier districts that may want to get on board with us. They had no interest.
No, of course not. But what about Naugatuck? And
But what I'm
Sonia?
gonna say
There
to
you
that,
go.
Paul, is we have all these board members here. Board members can't just talk at these meetings about these things they wanna do. If we really wanna get something done, this board as a whole has to work outside of this meeting and push our reps, push our legislators,
But why
and set
outside
up
of this
meetings
meeting,
with
Fiona?
other
Why
boards.
outside of this meeting? Why can't we come to a common?
Maybe so.
Subcommittee,
School program
something,
committee?
because there can't be, everybody's gotta share the work. If we wanna take on these big tasks of going to the state and trying to change state regulation, this whole board has to be on board to do it. A couple people can't do this.
No, I appreciate that, and I was just wondering if the rest of the board felt that way, that this, I mean, we're,
But it's a lot of
Just-
work to
just-
do it.
Brief,
we get victimized by these kind of state mandates.
real brief?
Very brief,
Very
okay.
brief.
My question is, if
Oh, I'm sorry.
we are mandated to have X amount of administrators, because it's 26 per administrator for a teacher. So now you hire Y amount of administrators to fulfill that one requirement. But what if those administrators don't have anything else to do in the course of the day besides those 26? Hypothetical situation, I'm saying. So 10, say you had 10 administrators do all of those functions last year before this took place, and it was getting done. Now, because of this requirement of 1 per 26, you need 16 administrators. So you added 6 more administrators to do this task, but they're not going to do any more work. Matter of fact, they're going to do less work because you were able to get all of those other functions done with 10. And now, because of this requirement of 1 per 26, you now have to hire 6 more for the district, even though they don't have more other work to actually justify their time and their expense. Just a hypothetical situation. I'm saying, you're telling us that it's the 1 per 26 that's dictating, but tell us about what mandates that we actually need all of those more administrators to not only do that evaluation, but what's going to sustain them for all of this time that you used to be able to get. I know you're telling us this, but we
got the mandates though.
What?
The July 1, all the mandates that passed July 1 were sent to all the board members.
I understand that. I'm saying, but we're being mandated on one issue of, that's the most important, that's the one that dictates that you have X amount of administrators. And I'm saying, what happens to the superintendent's evaluation of what the actual administrative needs of the district are? Maybe the administrative needs of the district with the evaluation is only 10, but because of that one requirement of 1 per 26, now it's 16. But the superintendent could evaluate, well, to monitor the classroom, to monitor the hallways and the drug policy and the bullying. We need 10 administrators to do that plus the evaluation. That's the entire time. But because of this one requirement of 1 per 26, we're no longer with just 10, you need 16. You're looking at me puzzled. And I know that you could probably always justify having administrators doing a lot of other things, but
I mean, first of all, to get the,
Yeah, go ahead, finish.